Good morning, everyone, and welcome to On the Wrong Lead presents Saratoga Daily. Today is August 14th. I am Mark, and we're going to be looking a little bit the Saratoga, the last three races. If you followed yesterday, we were very, very, very close to a pretty massive score. The pick three that I posted would have paid probably $2,800 to $3,000, that sort of range, had I gotten either of my two horses in the second leg home. We caught my Tom Morley price in the first leg, Xanthique, who did great on the cutback. The one horse, as so often happens, was a short-priced favorite on the turf at 5.5 on the rail. Those horses always get bottled up, and that horse had a troubled trip, was stuck inside, couldn't get loose until late, and Xanthique was able to hold on. Really nice trip by JJ. If you follow these sort of micro connections, which I like to chase a lot of times, Javier Castellano in the last year at Saratoga is 3 for 4 up for Tom Morley. So 75, when you win 75% of the time with a massive like $6 positive ROI, that's a pretty nice angle to chase. And I had the last leg right. It was a maiden claiming race with a couple of maiden special weight droppers. I took two droppers. They ran 1-2. If you boxed them up, it was a $50 exacta, which is pretty nice. Just screwed up the middle leg. The pace that I saw on paper did not materialize. A horse that I didn't expect to be rated was rated. I don't know if it was jock intent or if it was trainer orders. I'm going to lean towards trainer orders here, considering that jock has previously gone on that horse. Was frustrated, took a little walk after it. You always are upset when you're set up for a nice score as a horizontal player and you screw up the easy leg, the middle leg, where you don't, you're just sort of I had opinions in the first and the last. The middle one was just sort of a get it home race. So let's take a look at this Thursday card, and I've actually recorded this Friday card. I've actually recorded two videos, and I just didn't like the sequences, so I went to what felt better, even though I'm probably taking more chances in here. And I'm going to play a real skinny 8, 9, 10 pick 3. So in this 8th, you're going to see this horse by the name of Tale of Union. If we've been watching the bias at Saratoga at all, you know that the dirt and the turf have both been conveyor belts. You have to get to the lead. The problem is I just don't trust this horse. 8 to 5 on the morning line. I bet you get closer to even money on this one. Won its last out at Belmont and dropping in class off that. I have a lot of questions here, though. I mean, obviously, this is the speed of the speed on paper. If you're looking at optics, let me get to the 8th race here. You're seeing this big circle way out here in front, all from that last race. Johnny Velasquez sticks, so what's not to like? Well, as a handicapper, this move doesn't make any sense. This is a 4-year-old that they paid $925,000 for. There were a lot of high hopes here. Horse is 2 for 4 lifetime. Horse won its last start. Obviously this horse broke its maiden at Del Mar August of 2018 and then disappeared for 2 years. So that horse won, and then something happened. Ships back to the East Coast and has been, didn't have those first two, the Santa Anita and Belmont races were okay, and then in that allowance last out, did pretty darn well. Horse was bet to 70 cents on the dollar, so I really don't trust who else was in that race. Belmont is notorious for an absolutely gold rail. Oh yeah, this horse happened to get a gold rail trip. And also, this is a game where you want to make as much money as you can, as quickly as you can with a horse. Why on earth is this horse dropping to easier company? He's coming out of a straight allowance and going into an optional claim. Obviously, he's not in for tag, he's protected, but this is an easier race on paper. I would expect this horse, off the improving form, off the money they paid, there's obviously a lot there. It's a New York bred. Why isn't this horse in a 6 or a 7 furlong New York bred stakes, an overnight, a black type? That's where this horse should be targeted. This horse is not being targeted in one of those, and it makes me think that last race was very fluffed, and that this one isn't as good as what the odds are going to be. In here and I'm sorry, I think I pointed to when I looked at optics, I think I was pointing to Leaky Cup. The 4 is the Baffert horse right here. My apologies, Leaky Cup is the 5. Leaky Cup is going to go. Leaky Cup will be on the lead. Leaky Cup will stop in the middle of the stretch. That's what Leaky Cup does. So Leaky Cup would take a ton of money. If we see the early as a conveyor belt and you can't pass, then maybe you get cute and you use Leaky Cup in here. I would agree with that sort of a take. My assumption is though that this track, we got rain on Tuesday. The track normally will take water and it'll be very speed favoring. I bet third day after, this track becomes a little more fair on the dirt. And we have these two that are both really forwardly placed. The horse I want to get really aggressive to, and I probably am going to use as a single A, probably actually getting a hard single for this sequence, is this number 2, Thorny Tail. Thorny Tail is going to draw the rail for Javier Castellano up for George Weaver. The horse probably needs a little setup, but that two-back race, obviously it was on an off track, but that two-back race wins this and should win this. I think this horse will have Leaky Cup and Tail of Union, will be able to sit a pocket trip on the rail, and Javi can take over top of the stretch, and I really don't think anybody else is going to be coming. I'm probably hoping a little bit that the 4 and the 5 go at it, go at it to some degree, but I think that probably happens. I mean, Leaky Cup's got to go, and I think Tail Union's going to try to sit just off. I don't trust either one of them, and I want to sort of, and there's no one else in here who, there's a couple other horses. Runaway Loot has some speed, but outside Drawn with Rosario, I don't expect that one on the lead. I expect that one to sort of sit the same trip that the 1 does, and I think the 1 is a better horse. I realize Weaver's been a little cold. His barn tends to heat up a little bit later on in the meet, starting right around now. And JJ's staying here, I think, is a really good sign. Historically, George Weaver and JJ have done really good stuff together. I think you get a little better than 3-1 on this one, and I'm going to single this horse, in this at this level, because I think this horse is again dropping out of a bunch of stakes races, New York bred stakes predominantly, where this one didn't do so well. Dropped into some state bred allowances. We got that state bred allowance win, and I have a feeling that this one may be sort of pointed for this. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm going to get single and get aggressive here to Thorny Tail. In the 9th, we talked about this being the actual feature race, this mile and 3/16 race. I want to see if I can find a little bit of a price in here. And I mentioned a couple horses on our live stream last night. I'm going to go 3 deep in here with this play. I'm going to, I know Chase was talking up Mr. Alec. I'm going to start, I have a Christophe Clement Rosario fade after the first basically 2.5 weeks of Saratoga, 2.5, 3 weeks. So that is going to be something I'm going to slightly fade here. And I'm going to go out here and I'm going to find a couple of horses that I like at some sort of mid prices. First one is Current. Arad Ortiz and Todd Pletcher have been hitting at 39% this meet with a positive ROI. This one can get the distance. Obviously, this is a much easier race than the United Nations. Obviously, Aquaphobia got the absolute perfect setup in that race, but this is much easier waters. Horse doesn't necessarily love to win, but I think this is probably the trip, and I think this one makes a lot of sense in here, running the 3-turn mile and 3/8 on the inner. The other horse that I mentioned last night was Bundabunin, the 11. Horse is one that has figs that make sense. I like Manny up, and I guess in a race where I'm a little suspect of the pace all the way around, I think this, we'll see how this sets up, but I find this one sort of interesting. Now, the horse that I think probably this race goes through is the 1A Value Engineering. Horse can be probably ends up sitting first or second in here. It's Chad Brown. It's JJ up here. Horse seems to like to win every other, and this would be the other race. I wouldn't fault somebody for getting a little aggressive in here and in just using the 1A, but I it's a big field. And some wonky stuff can happen, and this horse ends up drawing, the 1A here drew well outside. I don't necessarily love these really outside posts at a mile and 3/16. They tend to get shuffled back in the short stretch to the first corner, and this one's going to have a lot of work to do late. If JJ breaks and kind of goes and presses, I think, somebody like an Empty Tomb, probably, the 10 horse, probably ends up being your pace. With Santana up, and then somebody also like a Conviction Trade should be able to keep that pace honest, and it wouldn't even surprise me. I think there was one other in here that I thought might be, I think Chase's Mr. Alec here, the Clement horse, can also be a little bit more forwardly placed. I think you have enough pace set up that I want a closer. These mile and three, I think it says 3/8. Let me make sure I'm saying it. I'm sorry, 3/16. The mile and 3/16 races do favor closers, so I want a horse that's a little bit more of a closer, and I like the three I have. Obviously, Value Engineering is probably the horse, but Bunda Boonin jumping up here for Cornelio Iglesias. His horses have been running too well for him not to have a win on the meet yet. And also a little bit of Current, who, if you're a Figs person, Current's kind of your horse at 7-2. And then, and I'm okay with just those three here, and then I want to get into three horses in the last leg. The three horses that I really wanted in here is obviously I'm somebody who always looks for changes, and I'm looking for things that are different. So let me talk about the two that are a little more logical, and then I'll go to my sort of stupid play that I like as a bit of a price in here, as an absolute bomb, quite honestly. The two horses that I think make the most sense are the 9 and the 10. Again, this is a maiden 40. These courses are coming out of Maiden Special Weight Company. They're your two droppers. You get Gaffleon up for Toner, which hasn't been great connections, but Toner is, Maiden Special Weight to Maiden Claim in last year. He's perfect, but he's also very good second off. So I would imagine that last race was to get the horse's feet under it, to get a race into them. This is probably the target, and I think to me, this would be my top pick. This other horse that I like is Unicorn Sally, the 10. It makes a ton of sense here as well. Horse dropping again. Now my concern here is the fact that this horse has run in maiden claiming company before. I don't necessarily know why they step back up in class. Seems a little odd. And this one's had quite a few chances. 0 for 7. Maybe they get the trip here. They probably need a little bit of help on the front end, which I think they'll get. There's a few speed balls that are drawn in here, but I do like this horse quite a bit. The other one that I sort of get a kick out of is that we're looking for races, a bunch of these races have been stolen on the front end. So it's a mile, and I still think you can steal one on the front end. So if you're looking for, and also at Saratoga, 1 mile, you have a fairly short run up into the first corner. So the 1 and the 2 paths do very, very well in these races. Horse that was sort of intriguing to me is this one, Lady Teufelsberg. I don't think the pedigree is the most turfy pedigree ever. I expect a couple people in Discord to beat me up because it's not the most turfy pedigree ever. I get it, guys. But the horse's last out 1 mile race on turf was an okay race. And if you look at this horse's maiden, it was very forwardly placed and has quite a bit of speed. In a race where I don't necessarily know where the pace comes from, the 2 has historically shown a little bit of speed, and I think it was the 10 or the 4 Corded has shown a bit of speed with Rosario up. And I think there was one other speed horse in here. Yeah, the 8 has shown a bit of speed. So there's a bit of speed in here. But Lady Teufelsberg should get the rail, should get kind of that ideal trip. And Dylan Davis won a race stealing one on the turf on the front end yesterday. So I like Michelle Massini is not a high percentage trainer, but she does very, very good work with Dylan Davis. They're almost 30% together over the past year, and she's very, very good with firsters into her barn. She's obviously spotting those new horses very appropriately. They obviously shipped this one up from Gulfstream, lands here. Maybe the horse doesn't run a step, and maybe I'm completely wrong here, but I think at a massive price, 30-1 in the morning line, this is the kind of horse that can sit the right trip, be on or just off the pace, and has every right to step forward in here. Coming from a 5% trainer into the, or Michael Massini, I think I said Michelle. Why did I say Michelle? Into the Michael Maselli barn. makes a ton of sense, at least in my head. So my play is a 1x3x3 pick three. I'll have it up on Discord, and maybe I'll throw it down in the description as well. But that is a 2 over 1 8 11 over 1 9 10. I'll probably try to leverage it up. I have some prices in there. I think this pays okay. This late sequence seems really salty. So yeah, that'll be it. Until next time, good luck at the races.